colleagues in Southeast Asia, including Muslim countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia. Japan launched a framework for this 12 years ago in 2013 and has continued to lead ever since. Japan strongly supports the initiative to promote lasting peace and stability across the entire Middle East region by expanding the Abraham Accords. These accords bear the name of the common spiritual ancestor of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. While it is extremely disappointing that progress towards the implementation of the agreement has stalled over the past 2 years, we strongly believe that their value will never be diminished. Madam President, a permanent member of the Security Council is openly making nuclear threats. I am deeply concerned that the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons may be lowered, which would introduce new uncertainties to the effectiveness of nuclear deterrence. We must address the issue of nuclear weapons head-on, squarely. Japan is fully aware of domestic and international calls on us to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons as the only country to have suffered atomic bombings. I am fully aware of this. However, we must maintain a world without nuclear war and also realize a world without nuclear weapons. To this end, the NPT, which brings together both the nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states, is the most effective and realistic framework. Japan calls on the international community to embrace the spirit of dialogue and cooperation so that next year's NPT review conference will be a success and so that the world will move one step closer to achieving a world without nuclear weapons. For Japan, which has been placed in an extremely severe security environment concerning nuclear weapons, extended deterrence provided by the United States, including nuclear deterrence, remains necessary to protect the lives and properties of our citizens. We cannot take a position that rejects deterrence theory. This is the reality of implementing a responsible security policy. Yet, the nuclear catastrophe our nation has experienced must never be repeated in this world. While it is a historical fact that the Hiroshima was the first place to suffer from atomic bombings, this will never change. But whether Nagasaki will remain the last place to suffer from atomic bombings depends on the continuous efforts and wisdom of mankind.
Many people around the world are likely to associate atomic bombings with the image of the mushroom cloud in the photo taken from the air right after the bombings. But what actually happened beneath that mushroom cloud in Hiroshima and Nagasaki 80 years ago? On August 6th, I attended the Peace Memorial Ceremony in Hiroshima, where I introduced a tanka, or short Japanese poem. These big bones must be the teachers. Around them, gathering in a circle, little skulls are found. These big bones must be the teachers. Around them, gathering in a circle, little skulls are found. This is a poem written by the poet Ms. Shinoe Shoda, which is inscribed on the monument of the A-bombed teachers and students of national elementary schools located near the epicenter of the atomic bombing. In the midst of the blazing fire, the students relied desperately on their teachers. The teacher was not able to protect those students. This poem evokes their grief. The lives and the futures of many civilians were lost in an instant. Even those who survived have suffered for a long time from the health hazard of radiation. This suffering continues to this day, 80 years later. I strongly hope that world leaders, as well as young people who will shape the future, will visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki to understand the realities of the atomic bombings. Madam President, it is North Korea that is now challenging these efforts towards a world without nuclear weapons head-on. Its nuclear and missile development poses a grave threat to international peace and security. We strongly urge the full implementation of the numerous Security Council resolutions aimed at achieving the complete denuclearization of North Korea. Additionally, there is the issue of Japanese citizens having been abducted by North Korea. With the aging of the abductees and their families, the abduction issue is a humanitarian and time-sensitive issue with no time to spare. Japan seeks to normalize its relationship with North Korea in accordance with the Japan DPRK Pyongyang Declaration through comprehensively resolving outstanding issues of concern, such as the abductions, nuclear and missile issues, as well as settlement of the unfortunate past. This policy remains unchanged. Japan will continue to call for dialogue with North Korea. We strongly ask for the continued understanding and cooperation of the international community. Madam President, the role of the United Nations extends beyond the notion of security in the narrow sense. Actions taken by the United Nations in the economic and social spheres are also vital in achieving international peace and security. Japan has continued to place importance on the concept of human security, which focuses on the individual and calls to protect human dignity. Japan does not seek specific economic interests or military footholds through its aid. We simply hope to laugh together, cry together, and work side by side with all the nations of the world. This is the core principle of Japan's international cooperation. With this determination, I hosted the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD, in Yokohama last month. Since its inception in 1993, Japan has remained steadfast in its commitment to supporting Africa's ownership in addressing its challenges. At this year's conference, we successfully launched our joint initiative to co-create innovative solutions to the challenges Africa is facing, leveraging Japan's technology and expertise. We also launched the Economic Region Initiative of Indian Ocean Africa with a view to stimulate trade and investment between Africa and the Indian Ocean region, as well as to promote Africa's regional integration. In promoting this initiative, we will also cooperate closely with India. Japan will continue to make every effort to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific FOIP. Madam President, no country can forge the path to a bright future unless it squarely faces history. We must never again repeat the devastation of war. On the anniversary of the war's end this August, I renewed my vow to engrave that in my heart. Many of the generation that experienced the Second World War in human history that divided the international community are no longer playing central role in many countries. The international community is once again heading toward division and confrontation, such as in Ukraine and the Middle East, where many lives are lost every day, and in East Asia, where Japan is located. The security of these regions is closely interrelated. The free and open international order based on the rule of law that we have strived for is facing unprecedented challenges. I'd like to make a strong plea. In the face of these challenges, it is crucial that we continue to nurture and protect our healthy and robust democracy. I'm not taking the position that the spread of democracy alone will bring peace to the world. We reject totalitarianism, irresponsible populism, and narrow-minded nationalism. We do not tolerate discrimination or exclusion. I believe that a healthy and robust democracy plays a vital role in maintaining and strengthening a free and open international order and in promoting international peace and security. That is founded on the courage and integrity to squarely face the past, and on fostering a sense of human rights, healthy discourse, including mission-driven journalism, and classical liberalism that values the tolerance of listening humbly to the arguments of others. Madam President, 70 years have passed since the Bandung Conference, which brought Asian and African nations together for the first time to advocate for world peace and cooperation. This was also the first large-scale international conference that Japan participated in since the war ended. The people of Asia showed a spirit of tolerance in accepting Japan after the war. They must have had unfathomable emotional struggles in doing so. Still, supported by this spirit of tolerance, and under the pledge never to wage a war again, Japan has been striving to realize everlasting world peace. Through my discussions with the leaders of the Republic of Korea, China, and Southeast Asian countries, I am once again convinced of the need to further promote future-oriented relations and have shared this conviction with the leaders of these countries. Over the past year, I have visited various countries in Asia and Latin America and met with numerous heads of state and government in Japan. This brings my total of such occasions to 90 countries and 4 international organizations. During these meetings, I often felt that countries around the world consider Japan an essential part of the international community. I hope that Japan will continue to be sought after by the rest of the world. That is my earnest wish. Please join us in calling for reform of the Security Council as soon as possible, a world without nuclear war and a world without nuclear weapons, a world that can overcome global challenges together, and solidarity and tolerance, not division and confrontation. Japan will continue to move forward alongside the international community. We will never waver, and we will continue to lead the way. It is with this determination that I'd like to conclude my statement. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of Japan. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Aziz Ashkanous, Head of Government of the Kingdom of Morocco. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Madam President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Majesties and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me at the outset to congratulate Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock on her election to the presidency of the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. I wish her, on my behalf and on behalf of the delegation of the Kingdom of Morocco, all success in her endeavor. Allow me also to seize this opportunity to reaffirm our full support to the relentless efforts made by the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres. His leadership remains vital in fighting global challenges. Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, this session is held as the world is facing a number of challenges that require to adopt a pragmatic approach. Globalism has brought people together. However, it is facing unprecedented challenges today due to economic and climate problems, as well as technological developments and other challenges that are growing very fast and that pose main questions about governance and responsibility. This is an era of reshuffling priorities and international dynamics. For this reason, geopolitical changes need to be assessed the right way if we really want to address challenges. This is something said by His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God protect him, when he stressed that the world today is going through a main transition from a global system that has achieved its goals but showed it is limited in achieving the aspirations of people, to a new model that we all have to work together to build. Madam President, the United Nations, despite its historic successes, is finding itself today facing the need to adapt with these changes. Does that mean that the United Nations is at stake today as the world continues to change? The answer is definitely no. But our organization is called upon now more than ever to review its priorities, because our main task remains the same. However, the tools and our working methods require reviewing to be in line with the size of current challenges and their complexities. The Kingdom of Morocco has always called for multilateralism that is committed to equality and sovereign equality among states and respect of their territorial integrity and unity. Madam President of the General Assembly, in line with our firm commitment as expressed by His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God protect him, the chair of the OIC's Al-Quds Committee, we continue to follow the deteriorating situation in the Palestinian territories. The Kingdom of Morocco calls today for further mobilization in the international community to save the region from the cycle of violence. Our action today needs to be based on 4 priorities. 1, an immediate ceasefire and a return to the negotiations table in order to put a final end to the war. 2, ensuring the entry of humanitarian assistance to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank without any conditions and restrictions. 3, promote the vital role of the UNRWA. And 4, implement a clear and comprehensive roadmap for reconstruction, the roadmap that was adopted by the Arab Summit under the leadership of the Palestinian Authority and under the sponsorship of the Arab and international worlds. Based on the instructions of of His Majesty the King, we continue to believe that the two-state solution is the only way to achieve sustainable and comprehensive peace in the Middle East. This is the solution that can no longer be delayed or marginalized. It needs to be a moral commitment and a political immediate request. In this regard, we reaffirm the need for political prospects by adopting a defined time frame to ensure the legitimate right of the Palestinian people to establish a Palestinian state that is independent on the lines of June 1967, with Al-Quds, with East Jerusalem as its capital, with Gaza as an integral part thereof. The economic aspect needs to be a part of the peace process, because there can be no peace without economic development. We need to also promote support to the Palestinian authorities so that it can strengthen its institutions to serve its people and achieve their aspirations. And finally, adopt regional security mechanisms that are sustainable based on international law and mutual respect. We also stress our full commitment to defending the holy sites in Palestine, especially Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is very special to His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God protect him, as the chairman of Al-Quds Committee. This is reflected in our diplomatic work and our executive branch, which is currently implementing vital projects to save the legal aspect of Al-Quds and to support the legitimate aspirations and rights of the Palestinian people. We also stand in solidarity with the state of Qatar, Syria, and Lebanon in the face of the attacks they have been under by Israel. In the same vein, we call for the adoption of peaceful solutions to disputes in the sisterly Arab states, including in Libya, Yemen, the Sudan, and Somalia, through dialogue and consensus. These solutions need to be based on the respect of their national sovereignty, their territorial unity, away from any foreign interventions. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, in a world of uncertainty and tensions, dialogue and cooperation have become very important. They are the pillars for achieving sustainable peace. Morocco, based on the great ambitious vision of His Majesty the King, we believe that genuine partnership and collective development is essential in our work internationally. Africa, specifically, finds itself today at a crossroads. Africa, for a long time, was the prisoner of a stereotype. It is today a space for innovation. It launched a number of initiatives to accelerate African integration in the global system. Based on the vision of His Majesty the King, the Kingdom of Morocco focused on Africa as a priority in its diplomacy, and it used it as an environment for belonging, cooperation, and partnership. His Majesty the King has stressed this by saying that Africa needs to transform its challenges into opportunities. It needs to value its strengths to build its future with ambition. Africa is at the center of initiatives led by His Majesty the King. He focused on Africa in his strategic vision, which seeks to unify Africa to ensure its well-being and its progress, while being open to international partnerships that are balanced. This should be reflected in the Rabat track for Africa at the Atlantic. This is a cultural project based on new geopolitical integration that would allow these states to recover their role at the Atlantic and to become a center of stability and security in which cultural and humanitarian cooperation turn into opportunities for socioeconomic development. The future gas, the gas pipeline project is one of the main projects that reflects this vision. It provided or it enjoyed international support. This great project is a response, a tangible response for climate, economic and social challenges. It also shows the innovation of Africa and its economic development. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we are faced with a geopolitical reality that is closely linked to climate change, which is affecting the way we live. It's affecting our economy. It is reshaping the international system and threatening international peace and security. As His Majesty the King has said, climate change is one of the major challenges facing the world today. It poses a genuine threat not only to the environment but also to socioeconomic development, but also on security and stability in the world. At the center of the challenge is the new strategy. It is a main source for facing drought and climate change. Morocco is facing structural drought and is continuing, based on our king's instructions, to adopt new strategies, including by desalinating water and promoting irrigation systems. In the same vein, we have taken great steps to promote renewable energy and fight climate change. This stresses, or Morocco stresses, the need for collective work to address these environmental challenges. No matter how great, no state alone has enough resources and capabilities to solve this problem alone. This is why we need to work globally today to achieve our collective and effective goals. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, in a few years, artificial intelligence has imposed itself as a new way to reshape our economies and our way of life. We are aware of the great opportunities it provides. However, we also recognize the great challenges it poses. Artificial intelligence should not become an alternative. It should not lead to marginalization. It should rather promote collective development. The tangible implementation of artificial intelligence is imposed today in a number of sectors, such as health, education, agriculture, and others. This is why we are betting on it today. Turning a blind eye to artificial intelligence and not taking advantage of it means wasting economic opportunities. We need to adopt artificial intelligence to reshape the labor market and adapt with the growing and fast challenges imposed by the need to use AI morally, responsibly. This is what the Kingdom of Morocco is working on right now through its Digital Strategy 2030. Madam President, the Kingdom of Morocco believes that sports leads to peace. It is a pillar for development. In this vein, we will be hosting we are preparing to host World Cup 2030 with Portugal and Spain. This is a real tool for cultural diplomacy and international openness. And this affects our social, economic, and human development. By organizing the World Cup, the Kingdom of Morocco, under the leadership of His Majesty the King, reaffirms its ability to take on great projects globally and mobilize its infrastructure and capabilities to show the real beautiful face of Africa at the international community. Madam President, the Kingdom of Morocco stresses its full support to the Secretary General of the United Nations and his special envoy, a special representative, to find a final solution to the regional dispute on the Sahara. The autonomy initiative is the only solution that is realistic. It is enjoying now growing support at the international level as part of the dynamic launched by His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God protect him. Based on this belief, His Majesty has stressed in his latest speech that the kingdom seeks to find a consensual solution that is a win-win for everyone to save face of all parties. The world is witness that the Moroccan Sahara issue is now at a historic crossroads. The positions of a majority of member states in this organization now pave the way towards a clear path that says it is high time to turn the page on this conflict in full respect of the sovereignty of Morocco and its territorial integrity. This is the international consensus around the autonomy initiative, and this consensus is growing because 2/3 of the member states of the United Nations consider this initiative as the sole pragmatic and credible basis to settle this dispute. On the ground, everything is clear. The Sahara has become a land full of opportunities because of the development model of the states that was launched by Morocco. And this is why this region has become a strategic platform that serves peace, stability, and collective development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 8 decades after its establishment, our organization's goals remain essential today more than ever. However, the changes in our world today require us to overcome the concept of crisis management towards building sustainable solutions. No matter the nature or size of the challenges, our collective responsibility is to work in solidarity to turn them into opportunities and to find comprehensive and just solutions. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the head of government of the Kingdom of Morocco. We have heard the last speaker in the general debate for this meeting. We will continue the general debate tomorrow at 9 a.m. in this hall. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you very much, Excellency, Madam
I
President.
appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you.
Oh, thank you for putting up with this. Please come back.
I will. Thank you.
Please, could you take your seats? Please, could you take your seats?
Let me begin with 2 words we have not been able to say often enough in this hall. Madam President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 8 years ago, in a world scorched by war, leaders made a choice: cooperation over chaos, law over lawlessness, peace over conflict. And that choice gave birth to the United Nations, not as a dream for perfection, but as a practical strategy for the survival of humanity. Many of our founders had seen firsthand the hell of the death camps and the terror of war. They knew that true leadership meant creating a system to prevent a replay of those horrors, a firewall against the flames of conflict and World War III, a forum for sovereign states to pursue dialogue and cooperation, and the concrete affirmation of an essential human truth. We are all in this together. And this General Assembly Hall is the heartbeat of that truth. It is why for decades world leaders have come to this one-of-a-kind podium. It is why you are here today. Because at its best, the United Nations is more than a meeting place. It's a moral compass, a force for peace and peacekeeping, a guardian of international law, a catalyst for sustainable development, a lifeline for people in crisis, a lighthouse for human rights, and the center that transforms your decisions, the decisions of member states, into action. 80 years on, we confront again the question our founders faced, only more urgent, more intertwined, more unforgiving. What kind of world do we choose to build together? Excellencies, we have our work cut out for us as our ability to carry out that work is being cut from us. We have entered in an age of reckless disruption and relentless human suffering. Look around. The principles of the United Nations that you have established are under siege. Listen, the pillars of peace and progress are buckling under the weight of impunity, inequality, and indifference. Sovereign nations invaded, hunger weaponized, truth silence, rising smoke from bombed-out cities, rising anger in fractured societies, rising seas swallowing coastlines. Each one a warning, each one a question. What kind of world will we choose? A world of raw power or a world of laws? A world that is a scramble for self-interest or a world where nations come together? A world where might makes right or a world of rights for all? Excellencies, our world is becoming increasingly multipolar, and this is positive, reflecting a more diverse, dynamic global landscape. But multipolarity without effective multilateral institutions can court chaos, as Europe has learned the hard way, resulting in World War I. It was multipolar, but there was no multilateral institutions. So let's be clear. International cooperation is not naivete. It is hard-headed pragmatism. In a world where there's leap borders, isolation is an illusion. No country can stop a pandemic alone. No army can halt rising temperatures. No algorithm can rebuild trust once it is broken. These are global stress tests of our system, our solidarity, and our resolve. I'm convinced we can pass these tests, and we must. Because people everywhere are demanding something better, and we owe them a system worthy of their trust and a future worthy of their dreams. And so we must make the choice, an active choice, to reaffirm the imperative of international law, to reassert the centrality of multilateralism, to reinforce justice and human rights, and to recommit to the principles that gave rise to our organization and to the promise contained in its first words, we the peoples. Excellencies, the choices we face are not part of an ideological debate. They are a matter of life and death for millions. As I scan the global landscape, we must make 5 critical choices. First, we must choose peace rooted in international law. Peace is our first obligation. Yet today, wars rage with a barbarity we vowed never to allow. Too often, the Charter is brandished when convenient and trampled when not. But the Charter is not optional. It is our foundation. And when the foundation cracks, everything built upon fractures. Around the world, we see countries acting as if the rules don't apply to them. We see humans treated as less than human, and we must call it out. Impunity is the mother of chaos, and it has spawned some of the most atrocious conflicts of our times. In Sudan, civilians are being slaughtered, starved, and silenced. Women and girls face unspeakable violence. There is no military solution. I urge all parties, including those in this hall, end the external support that is fueling this bloodshed. Push to protect civilians, because the Sudanese people deserve peace, dignity, and hope. In Ukraine, relentless violence continues to kill civilians, destroy civilian infrastructure, and threaten global peace and security. I commend recent diplomatic efforts by the United States and others. We must work for a full ceasefire and a just, lasting peace in accordance with the Charter, UN resolutions, and international law. In Gaza, the horrors are approaching a third monstrous year. They are the result of decisions that defy basic humanity. The scale of death and destruction are beyond any other conflict in my years as Secretary General. The International Court of Justice has issued legally binding provisional measures in the case named Application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip. Since then, a famine has been declared and the killing has intensified. The measures stipulated by the ICJ must be implemented fully and immediately. Nothing can justify the horrific Hamas terror attacks of October 7 and taking of hostages, those of which I have repeatedly condemned. And nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people and the systematic destruction of Gaza. We know what is needed. Permanent ceasefire now. All the hostages released now. Full humanitarian access now. And we must not relent in the only viable answer to sustainable Middle East peace, a two-state solution as so eloquently reaffirmed yesterday. We must urgently reverse dangerous trends on the ground. Relentless settler expansion and violence and the looming threat of annexation must stop. Everywhere, from Haiti to Yemen, to Myanmar and the Sahel and beyond, we must choose peace anchored in international law. The past year has brought glimmers of hope, including the ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand, and the agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia brokered by the United States. But far too many crises continue unchecked. Impunity prevails, lawlessness is a contagion, it invites mayhem, accelerates terror, and risks a nuclear free-for-all. When accountability shrinks, graveyards grow. When UN staff and facilities are attacked, violating legal obligations, so too is the core of our ability to serve and deliver. The Security Council must live up to its responsibilities. It must be more representative, more transparent, and more effective. Beyond crisis response, we must tackle the injustices that ignite conflict: exclusion, inequality, impunity, and corruption. The surest way to silence the guns is to raise the volume for justice. Real security is born of fairness and opportunity for all.
Excellencies, this leads me to my second point. We must choose human dignity and human rights. Human rights are not an ornament of peace, they're its bedrock. Human rights, economic, social, cultural, political, and civil, are universal indivisible and interdependent. Choosing rights means more than words. It means choosing justice over silence. It means protecting freedom and civic space, advancing equality for women and girls, confronting racism and discrimination in all its forms, protecting human rights defenders, journalists, and freedom of speech, and require political will.
Mais la dignité ne se
But
résume
dignity
pas à la
is not only
protection des droits.
about the protection of
Elle
rights.
exige pleinement concrétiser ces droits
About
grâce
rights
à un
fulfilled
développement
through
inclusif
inclusive
et
and
résilient.
resilient development.
Des droits qui mettent fin à la
Rights that
pauvreté
put an end
et à la
to
faim.
poverty and hunger.
Des droits qui ouvrent
Rights
de la
that
voie de
open
l'éducation,
doors
de la
to
santé
education,
et des
health
opportunités.
and opportunity.
Les objectifs de
The
développement
Sustainable
durable
Development
sont
Goals
notre feuille
are
de
our
route
shared
commune
roadmap
pour
for
concrétiser ces
achieving
droits.
these rights.
Mais pour avancer sur
But
cette
in order
voie,
to make
il faut
progress
du
down this
carburant.
road, we need
Ce
fuel.
carburant, c'est le
And
financement.
that fuel is
Et nous savons ce qu'un
finance.
développement bien mené peut
We've seen
accomplir.
what development done right can
Au
deliver.
cours de la dernière
In the past
décennie,
decade,
des millions de personnes
millions
supplémentaires ont
more have
accédé à
gained access to
l'électricité,
electricity,
à des solutions de cuisson
clean
propres
cooking
et à
solutions,
l'Internet.
and to the
Le
internet.
mariage des enfants
Child marriage
recule,
is in retreat.
la représentation des femmes
Women's
avance,
representation is
mais les
growing,
coupes dans l'aide au
but cuts
développement
to aid
font des
are
ravages.
wreaking havoc.
Pour un grand nombre de personnes,
They are
elles
a death
représentent une
sentence
condamnation
for many.
à mort. Pour tant d'autres,
For so
un
many more,
avenir confisqué.
a stolen future.
C'est là tout le
This
paradoxe
is
de
the
notre
great
époque.
paradox of our time.
Nous avons les solutions,
We have the
mais nous
solutions,
siphonnons le
but we
carburant
are
qui
siphoning
nous
off the
permettrait
fuel
d'avancer.
that would make it possible to make
Choisir la
progress.
dignité, c'est choisir
To
la
choose
justice
dignity, we
financière
must choose
et la
financial
solidarité.
justice and solidarity.
Nous devons réformer
We need
l'architecture
to
financière
reform the international
internationale
financial
afin
architecture
qu'elle soit au
so that it
service du
drives
développement
development
de
for all.
toutes et de tous. Avant que des banques multilatérales de
With bigger
développement
and
plus grandes et
bolder
plus
multilateral
audacieuses,
development
qui
banks
prêtent
lending more
davantage et mobilisent
and
plus de
mobilizing
capitaux
more
privés pour les
private
pays en
capital
développement,
for developing
avec des
countries,
mécanismes d'allègement de
with
dette plus
faster
rapides et
and
plus
fairer
justes,
debt relief
couvrant tous les
mechanisms,
pays en difficulté,
helping every country in
y compris
crisis,
ceux à revenus
including
intermédiaires.
middle-income countries.
Une protection des ressources nationales,
Protecting
en
natural
s'attaquant aux flux
resources
financiers
by
illicites,
tackling illicit
aux
financial
pratiques fiscales
flows
abusives
and abusive tax
qui volent aux
practices
sociétés
that rob
de leur
societies
avenir.
of their future.
et des institutions
And
financières
global
mondiales à
financial
l'image du monde
institutions that
d'aujourd'hui,
represent today's
avec une
world, with
participation
far
bien plus
greater
forte
participation
des pays
of
en développement
developing countries
dans sa composition et ses décisions.
in terms of their composition
Alors
and
faisons
their
le choix
decision making.
d'une
So
économie
let
mondiale au
us
service de
choose a
toutes
global
et
economy
tous.
that works for everyone,
Faisons le
men
choix
and women.
des droits
Let
humains
us choose
et de la
human
dignité
rights and
et
dignity,
donnons-nous les moyens d'une
and
transition
let us
juste
equip
pour les
ourselves
peuples
with the
et la
means
planète.
to ensure a transition
Excelências,
for people and the planet.
Esto nos leva a la tercera opción.
Excellencies, this brings me to
Debemos nos
the
leva a la tercera opción. Debemos elegir la justicia climática. La crisis climática se está acelerando, pero las soluciones también. El futuro de la energía limpia ya no es una promesa lejana, ya está aquí. Ningún gobierno, industria o interés especial puede detenerlo. Pero algunos lo están intentando, prejudicando a las economías, imponiendo precios más altos y desperdiciando una oportunidad histórica. Excellencies, fossil fuels are a losing bet. Last year, almost all new power capacity came from renewables, and the investment is surging. Renewables are the cheapest and fastest source of new power. They create jobs, drive growth, shield economies from volatile oil and gas markets, connect the unconnected, and can free us from the tyranny of fossil fuels. But not at today's pace. Clean energy investment remains uneven. 21st century grids and storage are not rolling out fast enough. And public subsidies, taking from taxpayer money, still flow to fossil fuels over clean energy by a factor of 9 to 1. Meanwhile, emissions, temperatures and disasters keep rising. And those least responsible suffer the most. Science says limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees by the end of this century is still possible, but the window is closing. The International Court of Justice has affirmed the legal obligation of states. We must step up action and ambition, especially to strengthen national climate plans. Tomorrow, I will welcome leaders to announce new targets. The G20, the biggest emitters, must lead, guided by common but differentiated responsibilities. But all countries must step up and do more as we head to the UN Climate Conference in Brazil. By accelerating action in energy, forests, methane and industrial decarbonization. By defining a credible roadmap to mobilize $1.3 trillion annually in climate finance by 2035 for developing countries. By supporting just transitions, by doubling finance for adaptation to at least $40 billion this year, and rapidly deploying proven tools to unlock billions more in concessional finance. And by capitalizing the Loss and Damage Fund with significant contributions. All of these requires government, international financial institutions, philanthropies, civil society, and the private sector to work together, to provide fiscal space to developing countries and unlock new innovative sources of finance at scale, including solidarity levies on high-emitting sectors and debt swaps. We have the solutions and tools, but we must choose climate justice and climate action. First, we must choose to put technology at the service of humanity. Artificial intelligence is rewriting human existence in real time, transforming how we learn, work, communicate, and what we can trust. And the question is not how to stop it, but how to steer it for the greater good. Technology must be our servant, not our master. It must promote human rights, human dignity, and human agency. Yet today, AI's advancement in outpacing regulation and responsibility and is concentrated in a few hands. And the risks are expanding to new frontiers, from biotech to autonomous weapons. We are witnessing the rise of tools for mass surveillance, mass social control, mass disruption, and even mass destruction. Tools that can drain energy, strain ecosystems, and intensify the race for critical minerals, potentially stoking instability and conflict. Yet, these technologies remain largely ungoverned. We need universal guardrails and common standards across platforms. No company should be above the law. No machines should decide who lives or dies. No system should be deployed without transparency, safety, and accountability. Last month, this Assembly took a historic step, establishing an independent international scientific panel on AI and an annual global dialogue on AI governance. Two new pillars of a shared architecture, connecting science with policy to bring clarity and foresight, enabling innovation to flourish while advancing our values and our rights, and ensuring governments, companies, and civil society can help shape common norms. We must build on these mechanisms and close the capacity gap. All countries must be able to design and develop AI, not just to consume it. I have proposed voluntary financing options to build AI computing power, data, and skills in developing nations. No country should be locked out of the digital future or locked into systems it cannot shape or trust. And governments must lead with vision and companies must act with responsibility. And we, the international community, must ensure that technology lifts up humanity. So let us choose cooperation over fragmentation, ethics over expediency, and transparency over opacity. Technology will not wait for us, but we can still choose what it serves. So let us choose wisely. Fifth and finally, to meet all these goals, we must choose to strengthen the United Nations for the 21st century. The forces shaking our world are also testing the foundations of the United Nations system. We are being hit by rising geopolitical tensions and divisions, chronic uncertainty, and mounting financial strain. But those who depend on the United Nations must not be made to bear the cost, especially now, when for every dollar invested to support our core work to build peace, the world spends $750 on weapons of war. This is not only unsustainable, it is indefensible. In this moment of crisis, the United Nations has never been more essential. The world needs our unique legitimacy, our convening power, our vision to unite nations, to bridge divides and confront the challenges before us. The Pact for the Future has shown your determination to build a United Nations that is stronger, more inclusive, and more effective. That is the logic and the urgency of our UN80 initiative. We are moving swiftly and decisively. I put forward concrete proposals, a revised budget for 2026 that strengthens accountability, improves delivery, and cuts costs. Practical reforms to implement mandates more effectively and efficiently with greater impact. And ideas to spark a paradigm shift in the structure of the UN and how its parts work together. Most of these decisions rest with you, the Member States, and we will move forward in full respect of the established procedures. Together, let us choose to invest in a United Nations that adapts, innovates, and is empowered to deliver for people everywhere. Excellencies, my overriding message comes down to this. Now is the time to choose. It's not enough to know what the right choices are. I urge you to make them. I grew up in a world where choices were few. I was raised in the darkness of dictatorship, where fear silenced voices and hope was nearly crushed. Yet, even the bleakest hours, especially then, I discovered a truth that has never left me. Power does not reside in the hands of those who dominate or divide. Real power resides from people, from our shared resolve to uphold dignity, to defend equality, to believe fiercely in our common humanity and the potential of every human being. I learned early to persevere, to speak out, to refuse to surrender, no matter the challenge, no matter the obstacle, no matter the hour. We must and we will overcome. Because in a world of many choices, there is one choice we must never make, the choice to give up. We must never give up. That is my promise to you, for peace, for dignity, for justice, for humanity, for the world we know is possible when we work as one. I will never, ever give up. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General. The Assembly will now turn to agenda item 8, entitled General Debate. "80 years. longer than the average human life. This anniversary of the United Nations should have been a moment of celebration. But this is not an ordinary year. Just look at the state of our world, as the Secretary General described. Thousands of orphans in Gaza are wandering around the rubble, eating sand, drinking contaminated water. 90-year-old women in Ukraine are hiding from drones, trapped in their homes instead of living their final years in peace. Children in Haiti, too afraid to walk to school, afraid they might be gunned down by gangs like their friends. And for every conflict and tragedy that seizes the headlines, there are so many more that are forgotten.